Hey there, it's Sean Timms here from Southern Empire and Dominic, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is Scott Medina with Sonic Perspectives. Today I'm talking to Sean Timms from halfway around the world, literally, in Australia. Sean, are you there?
I am here. Hello.
Hey there, cheers. Good morning, right, for you?
Yeah, 10 o'clock in the morning here. What time is it there?
Yeah, nice. We're approaching 7 p.m. in Colorado, so we got all bases covered, I think.
Fantastic. I've been to Denver. My wife actually lived in Denver, Colorado when she was in her late teens for a year and absolutely loved it. So we hope to get back there one day and visit that beautiful state.
Yeah, you do need to visit, and we've got a bit of a prog community out here too. So bring along a piano or so, and we'll get you going.
Great. Well, look, we're considering a tour of the US in 2020. So, yeah, we're possibly be looking for gigs. So, anyone out there that can help in North America would be greatly appreciated.
Well, you heard it here first. 2020 vision there. We'll be looking for you then on tour.
Good. Brilliant.
That'd be fantastic to get you over here. Well, let's start with a new release, Civilisation. This there's just an amazing buzz amongst the progressive rock fans about this album in just a couple weeks since its release.
Yeah, it's kind of taken, I think, all of us a bit by surprise. Certainly myself. I released my first, I guess you could say, prog album with Unitopia and More Than a Dream in 2005. So this has been, I guess, a sort of a 13-year journey. And I'd have to say, from my perspective, it's the release that has garnered the most interest and appreciation, which is, I guess it's, it is surprising because you write this music and you produce it and you hope that people will like it, and and that's not why we do it. We do it because we live and we eat and we breathe and we write and we play music, and that's the way things work for musos and songwriters. But to have it appreciated all over the world and so I guess passionately is quite humbling and surprising to a certain extent. So but prog fans are madly passionate, and that's part of what I love about the style and the prog community in general. And I've met some prog fans in North America and in the UK and Europe. Not so many in Australia. We don't have a lot here.
Shame.
But, the ones that we do have are again fiercely passionate. And so, when they when they say that they like it, they really mean it. And so you don't take it with a grain of salt. I certainly don't. I'm extremely honoured and flattered that people are digging the new album.
Yeah. How did you feel upon the completion of the recording itself? Did you feel like this was something special and unique, or were you just, exhausted at the end and, well, we'll just see how folks like it?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. The second way, I think. You cross your fingers and you hope for the best. It's good to have GEP, and I've got to say shout out to both Anne Fox and Mike from GEP. They've been wonderful in releasing the album and getting it out there, both albums.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all very well and good to write what you think is a reasonably good album, but if nobody hears it, it's kind of wasted. So, they've done a brilliant job in getting it out there, getting it heard, getting it played. And so, I've got to say a shout out to them that we couldn't do it without them. And it is a partnership,
Mm-hmm.
Between us and the record. I think it works really well. And but yeah, to answer your question, yeah, you kind of cross your fingers and hope for the best and hope that, people like it. And you're usually kind of exhausted. With this release, it was almost like, well, I need to get it done and I need to get it finished and out because we've got a tour coming up, but I also need to get the next Dominic album finished as well. So I sort of finished that one and went straight into finishing off the new Dominic album, which is released in October.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't really any time to breathe. It was just sort of finishing one project and bang into the next one.
Wow. Was there a sense, though, as you were winding up, I mean, did you have the same feeling as you did when you did the debut Southern Empire album or, say, one of the Unitopia albums?
I think every album's sort of they're like children. They're like your kids, they're all different and they all kind of turn out differently and they all kind of give you a different experience. So, I guess this one was I felt for me, the crafting of the mix and the arrangements and the songs, it was certainly more a band effort within the arrangements and the playing. Everyone had a input as to how it should sound. But when it's done, it's kind of like it takes on a life of its own, really.
Yeah.
But I'm proud of everything I've done. And I think the Unitopia stuff has a certain kind of flavour to it, and Southern Empire has a different flavour, and Dominic has a different flavour again. But I think they're all my children, and I love them.
Yeah. And on with this child, it seems that you've shared the songwriting more than you have in the past, and I'm curious how that experience was for you, and if you think that it benefited the album as a whole.
Oh, definitely. We wouldn't have had Goliath's Moon, the opening track, without Cam's contribution. So, obviously the first album was all mine, as far as songwriting, and it was predominantly written for the next Unitopia album. And so, there are elements, and ideas and things that Mark Chouat contributed to that first album as well, and a couple of the tracks were actually on the first UPF album. But largely it was sort of written by myself. But with this album, I really did want to include, if not songwriting ideas, then certainly arrangement ideas from everyone, and that's something that everyone did. I mean, as soon as Danny gets into the studio, he's going, do you mind if I try this vocal line, or is it okay if I sing it this way or that way? And I go, absolutely. You're the singer. You sing it the way that feels comfortable to you. And then Cam, I'd say, look, I've got a placeholder 8-bar sort of riff here, and this is kind of how I want it to go. And then Cam would come up with this crazy ass riff that I'm still working out, and all the rest of the guys are kind of latch onto it and go, yep, that's great. And they're all playing it. And I'm going, hang on a minute, what time signature is this again?
Right.
And then Cam sort of came to me with a very basic acoustic guitar and a vocal. And it was a lot slower when he brought it to me. So I sort of took it, arranged it, picked up the tempo, and then did a placeholder middle section, and then he came up with that whole sort of, fugal midsection with the 3-part vocals, and again, as he demoed it himself with his 3 voices and an acoustic guitar, and then I kind of took that again and ran with it. And then Danny came up with the harmonies, Cries for the Lonely. Brody was very involved in. He's really into that kind of gothic sort of gothic metal kind of sound, Nightwish and bands like that he loves. So he brought a little bit of that element to it, and also to the jig section in Innocence and Fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And then, jazz, sort of brings out these wonderful, wonderful bass lines, that just lift the track. And then that inspires Brody. And so, we get together and we kind of inspire one another. So it's a really good team that we have. And it's something that I've really tried to cultivate. And we're going to, be with the next album even more. I really want Jazz to do some writing, and Cam wants to write a couple of songs. Danny's already got a couple of songs. Brody's got plenty of ideas. So it doesn't have to be all me. But in saying that, we have a sound, and so I will, I guess, make sure that sound and that style is represented. Mm-hmm. So it's not too much of a departure from the first couple of albums. It still has that intrinsic Southern Empire style.
Yeah, are all the other guys into progressive rock as much as you are, or do they play many different styles of music as well?
Yeah, well, look, even though I'm way into prog and have been since I was, my dad at 14 brought me Journey to the Center of the Earth, and from that point on, I wanted to be Wakeman.
Yeah.
And no decent, self-respecting keyboard player would want to be anyone else. I'd say maybe Keith Emerson or Tony Banks, but that was my dream growing up. So as a teen and right through to now, it's always been my preferred style of music. But yeah, Danny is into everything: classic rock, hard rock, jazz, fusion, you name it. He's into it. And Cam, again, sings and plays everything. Brody, as I said, he's sort of into that kind of heavier sort of, gothic symphonic metal type stuff. But he's also, he loves musicals and, as do I. And so he's kind of got that theatrical side to him, so... and then Jazz comes from sort of a rock pop punk background, so he's a little bit more. I think he struggles a little bit with because he comes from that punk sort of background with that whole punk prog ethos, mm-hmm. where punk was all about short, hard hitting. No virtuosity or little virtuosity at all, and it was a sort of a counterweight to the pomposity of prog that happened in the mid to late 70s. So he comes from that, and so sometimes he struggles with the cred of it all, I think. Well, why are we doing that? That's not very cool. And I go, yeah, but the fans love it. So, but that's good because it does kind of keep us on our toes, having that kind of influence in the band. You kind of go, okay, well, are we being a bit too pretentious here? And do we need to kind of, strip it back a little bit and make it a little bit tougher or whatever? So it's good having those different points of view in the band. I think everyone enjoys the music that we do, and whether it's called prog or not doesn't really matter to them. It's just the music that they play in this band that they enjoy.
Yeah, and it seems that your songwriting always has incorporated so many styles from around the globe, so that likely engages all the members of the band as well, I would think.
Yeah, I tend to get bored easily. I go, let's put a bit of Latin in here. It's a bit too metal at the moment. Or, let's put some, nice jazz chords in here. And look, I've just been listening to Moon Safari and their harmonies. Let's put some harmonies in there. So, and then I'll listen to a bit of Neil Morse and I'll go, gee, that's a great melody. That's a really good. That's just a really good song. Yeah, I want to write a really good song. So it's, it depends on who I'm listening to and what I'm listening to, and then I might, say, Return to Forever. Oh, that's great. Or some Frank Zappa or something like that. Let's put something really outside in there, So, and that's something that Jazz has introduced me to a little bit more because through him I got invited to do a Zappa tribute show, and I'd never listened to much Zappa before, but man alive, it's if you think it's difficult to listen to, it's even more difficult to play. It's just nutso. But again, a greater appreciation for Frank Zappa music through jazz, which is good. So it's not all punk and rock with him. There's subtleties there as well, and styles of music that and because they're younger guys, I guess they're more influenced by the newer newer stuff. So they might not have listened to every Genesis album 1,000 times, but they'll know every Muse song or every Tool song, and things like that. Whereas I've only listened to bits and pieces of that.
Yeah.
So it's they all come at it from a different angle.
Yeah, it's great that they can bring some of the younger stuff, but also, as you said, I mean, you're getting introduced to Zappa more through them as well. So that's pretty cool there as well. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So on the new album, of course, there's a massive half-hour epic that originated in the Unitopia days called The Crossroads, and it seems like you've added an additional 10 minutes, I guess, because a 20-minute epic wasn't enough for you or something like that, right?
20 minutes isn't epic.
There you go.
20 minutes is a short song. But
Yeah.
It's 20. Now, look, the version that UPF recorded was largely, or pretty much exactly, the demo that Mark and I had come up with ready for the next Unitopia album. And he talked to me and said, look, do you mind if I, record these songs for UPF? And I said, no, that's fine. I said, just, if you can kind of change them a little bit to kind of make them your own. And they were pressured quite a bit, timing-wise to get this album out. And so they couldn't do a lot to kind of sort of change it and make it their own. So it ended up being, fairly closely tied to the original demos that Mark and I did. And I was never really 100% happy with everything in that song. I thought, there were improvements to be made, but they never got done. And so then it got recorded, and you kind of think, okay, the first recording often becomes the definitive version. And I just thought, well, look, no, this is a song that sort of I, largely wrote, and I'm not happy with it. Not that they didn't do a great job, but I just wasn't happy with the actual songwriting element of it, and I thought it could be stronger. And so, we took out some bits and put in other bits, and before we knew it, it was now 30 minutes instead of 20 minutes. And look, I think there's some great writers out there who can write short stories, and there are some great writers out there who write epics. And there's some very clever people that can do both. And I guess, this album is a bunch of longer stories and epics. And, we're thinking maybe the next album might be a bunch of short stories. So, just to mix it up a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I find with telling a story in a song, you often need that time to get the whole point of view across, and have the lyrics mean something rather than, I have trouble saying things in 3 verses, a chorus and a bridge often. So, but then I'm listening to Wichita Lineman, before this interview, and that's a couple of verses, and it's it, and it tells you everything you need to know, and it's one of the best songs ever written. So, yeah, I've forgotten what the question was. I tend to ramble a bit. Sorry.
Yeah, epic answers to go along with epic songs. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
There you have it.
Any of them.
Yeah. Are there more leftovers from the Unitopia sessions that might see the light of day in a future Southern Empire release?
Look, I don't think so. I think between Mark and I, we've covered pretty much everything that we wrote during that time now. Between the two of us, I think we've represented that material really well. Mark's working on his next UPF album at the moment. That's very near to being completed, and I've heard some of it, and it's mind blowing. I said to him, "I don't want you releasing it this year, otherwise you're going to jeopardize our album of the year chances big time." So. Yeah, look, it's very clever. Mark is a great visionary and has some great ideas for concepts, not just for songs but for whole albums, and it digs a lot deeper than that, into environmental and world issues, and that's what Mark is passionate about. And Steve Unruh from Samurai Prog, is doing some great work on it as well. And there's a cast of thousands. Mark just has this ability to get people to contribute, to these projects and then kind of pull it all together. So, yeah, I think all of the songs on his next album now are brand new. And I think that the only reason we did Crossroads was I think it's a really good song. I thought it would be well received, and I didn't think that the definitive version had been put down yet. So, so there will be, for the next album, it will be totally, you've never heard anything of it before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How is the progressive music scene in Australia these days? You alluded a little bit to it there, but I'm just curious if you guys can get many gigs in your home country.
Well, we do have a few fans. The hard part for us, being an original progressive rock band in Adelaide, there's not the population to support the style, unless you're a huge band overseas, and even then you might get a couple of hundred people at the gig. So, with our album launched, we worked our butts off and invited absolutely everyone and managed to get close to 300 people there. And that was great. But, you put the fans in the dozens rather than the hundreds or even thousands in Adelaide. And then, you've got dozens of fans in Melbourne or Sydney, but Melbourne is a day's drive away, and Sydney is, the better part of a day and a half to 2 days to get there. S you can do it in one trip, but it'll take you sort of 14, 15 hours, solid driving. So touring, Australia is around about the same size as the US, with essentially, half a dozen capital cities.
Yeah.
If that puts it into perspective. So it's a really long way to go to get from point A to point B. So touring is possible, but it's a really big commitment. And I think for the commitment it would take to tour nationally here, those energies are probably better spent in hopping in a plane, hiring some gear, and doing a North American tour or a UK and Europe tour.
Yeah.
So don't love our own country and we want to play for our fans, but as I said, they number in the dozens rather than the hundreds or the thousands. Yeah. So, but those dozens are appreciated and we love them to bits, and we'd love for them to hear our music, but and there's still a possibility, but it is difficult because there isn't a huge prog scene here in Australia.
Yeah, well, appropriately, you've got a tour of the UK and Europe coming up later this year, and I imagine the band must be really stoked to play live.
Well, we don't get to do it all that often. So, Danny was only saying to me a day or two ago that he's really looking forward to how tight we'll be by the end of the tour.
Yeah.
And he wants to come back and do some gigs here because he knows how together it will be. Because when you're playing this stuff every night, it really begins to gel in a big way. And
is that like a challenge for the for the opening dates to get your chops up, since you don't get to tour a whole lot? Is it? How do you deal with that really, and be a really tight band from the get go?
I think it's probably, I would say yes, with maybe some bands and some musos, but I've got to tell you, these guys are the best guys I've ever played with. They're amazing. They're machines. They're just with groove, and so that never bothers any of us because we're all working at playing music every week, 2 or 3 nights a week. So, yes, it's different music, but everyone's used to being in front of a crowd. Danny and Brody playing a covers band called Clearway, and they're gigging 3 nights a Saturday every week. And they get hundreds of people along to every gig. They're the best cover band in town. And so Danny's this just amazing front man that can get in front of an audience and just absolutely kill it. Brody, his memory is just, I don't know how he does it. He just knows so many songs and he plays it beat perfect every time. Jez and Cam are, again, playing in different bands, 2-3 nights a week. Different repertoires, and so it's, even though there are challenging parts to what we play, it's it's one of those things that they like. With the Zappa gig, we did a bunch of rehearsals, then we did one gig, and and that was it, and we nailed it. And so I guess they're used to that, even though we call it match fit. So even though this is material we haven't played in much in front of live audiences, the guys are really match fit as far as their craft and their playing, their singing and everything. So they just come to it from that point of view where it's another gig for them, not just another gig, but another gig in a huge repertoire of gigs that they do. So it's really quite quite straightforward for them, I think. Yeah. I'm the one that struggles.
Yeah, and speaking of struggling, your upcoming tour, you're co-headlining with another band that you're in, Dominic, and so are you looking forward to the challenge of being on the stage for, 4 hours at a time, or is that feeling a bit overwhelming?
Yeah, no, look, you do a cover gig here in Adelaide and you're on stage for that amount of time, so doing longer gigs is not really an issue. We're going to limit it to around about an hour and a quarter per band. So Brody and I will be on, because Brody's played the drums on both albums, so both he and I will be on stage for both sets. But the funny thing is that you play for an hour and a quarter, and it just flies by. You kind of go, that was felt like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. So, look, I think it's going to be really enjoyable. I play with Guy and the rest of the band, and 2 years ago at Summer's End Festival in Chepstow, Wales, when we played there, and just before the release of the first album. And it was incredible. So nobody knew the material. Nobody had a clue what was going on, but we got invited to play this festival, and we did, and we played well, and people absolutely loved it. And the album was released sort of, soonish afterwards. But I flew halfway across the world to rehearse and play this one gig.
Yeah.
Which was great fun, and it was great catching up with a lot of people I hadn't seen since we toured over there in 2010. But again, that 1 hour set just felt like 5 minutes, and so doing those longer shows, it's not really an issue for me. So it's just good fun. It just prolongs the enjoyment.
Good. I'm glad you're where you want to be, and
Yeah.
along those lines, with so much, with the music being just so complex and so much for you to cover on the keyboards with the song arrangements, do you ever long to break free from the confines of like that keyboard palace that you have there, and be more front and center for like a moment, like Cam or Danny get to do?
Yeah, look, I'm comfortable in front of a crowd and sort of doing pattern that, but as far as what Danny does, there's no one better. So why bother? Really. He's got such a great voice and he's such a great front man and so charismatic. I'm quite happy for him to, get all the glory and the accolades and the chicks. So
yeah. So with the multiple bands and projects you're involved with, is music a full-time occupation for you?
I guess in a sense it is. Audio is certainly a full-time occupation, and I write a lot of music for advertising agencies for their clients. But I also do a lot of audio work for them as well. So it might be recording and producing a voiceover or doing some sound effects or, things like that. So I guess audio is a full-time occupation. So I've been running Timm's Tunes, my company now, for sort of 30 years or so. And, and as I said, I'm probably more in the advertising industry than the music industry, but in all of that, there's predominantly my job is recording audio, voiceover, sound effects, writing music tracks, putting it all together for TV and radio commercials and corporate videos.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of short film work, producing singers and songwriters. They'll come to me with a song, and then I'll sort of produce a backing track for them and record them singing and then mix it all. I've just finished an album with a guy called Jan Nico, who's one of the best guitarists in Australia. The guy's amazing. He works with a band called the Zepp Boys, and they do all like it's a Led Zeppelin tribute act. Mm-hmm. I think they're touring early next year over in the UK. But they are amazing, and he's a guitar virtuoso. So I've just finished recording and co-producing and mixing his album. So I do stuff like that as well. And then I'm currently in the middle of mixing an album for a band from the Ukraine who contacted me because they liked the way that my style and the way I mix things, and so I'm sort of in the middle of that at the moment as well. That's proving to be good fun. So I kind of just keep myself busy, do the odd gig here and there, and it's all audio based and audio related, not necessarily all music, but certainly audio.
And is the new Dominic album, is that all wrapped up now and just awaiting release in October?
Yeah, that's all done. A lot of people that have heard it think it's stronger than the first one, which is great. And it's all guys songwriting, and he's co-produced it with me. And I think it's a really strong album. I really enjoyed working on it, and so it'd be good to play that stuff live, and as well as some songs from the first album. But that's all done and dusted. We mastered it about a month ago and got it that with the album artwork to the record company a few weeks ago, and so they need about a 3-month lead time just to press it and start all the promotion and advertising for it and pre-orders and stuff like that. So it's usually from the time we finish to the time it gets released, it's around about 3 months.
Yeah.
Hence October.
Yeah. So with all that's going on right now for you, if you could look about 10 years out, what would be satisfying for you as an artist to have achieved in the next 10 years' time?
Well, I'm 55 now, so that'll make me 65.
Yeah, well, don't lead with that. You got plenty going on for a couple decades at least, right?
Oh, look, I spoke to an engineer friend of mine who I hadn't worked with for ages. And he's the same age as my dad, which is, he was 78 at the time. Dad's just turned 79. So, and he's still running his recording studio and recording bands and stuff. So I don't think it'll ever stop. But I'd say for 10 years' time, look, I hope I'm still doing this sort of stuff. And I hope that it's still well received, and that we can still do some touring, that it doesn't get too expensive. And I really do hope that people support what we do from, not only from buying the album, but just getting along to the shows. So, it costs a fortune to get us all, with a certain amount of equipment and hiring and van hire and all of that and accommodation and plane flights. It costs a huge amount to get us over from Australia to either North America or the UK and Europe. And so, we really want people to come out and support the music and buy tickets to the shows and get along and enjoy us live. Because I think, if we get only a handful of people to the shows, then we'll kind of go, look, it's not really worthwhile. Let's just keep writing and recording and releasing music, but not touring. It should be a real shame. So I'd certainly like to do some more touring, because I love travel. As I said, look, there's a strong possibility about touring North America in 2020.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I think all the guys are really pumped about the tour coming up in November, and for two of the guys, Cam and Jazz, it's the first time they've done anything like that. So it's going to be really quite a bit of an eye opener and a bit exciting for them. Not that it's any less exciting for me. I love travel. I love touring and meeting new people who are supporters overseas. And so, but Danny and Brody, we played not last Rosfest, the one before, as a band called Unit DB, and that was with myself and Danny and Brody from Southern Empire and Mark Truack, Unitopia and UPF, and Steve Unruh. And so we had a good full day's rehearsal, and then we did the gig, and we were on just before Neil Morse. And so I got to, see Neil Morse play and, have a happy snap, because he's, he's one of those prog musos that I respect immensely, not only from his songwriting and musical ability, but also, from where he comes with his, from with his faith. So,
yeah.
It was great to share the stage with them, and that was great fun, and Danny and Brody had a great time as well, and so they've had a bit of a taste of that, and so they're really gung ho, and I think that Cam and Jazz are certainly chomping at the bit to get in front of the audiences in anywhere really.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, look, I mean, where you guys are at right now, you said at the beginning of the interview, it feels like there's more energy really with this brand new release than perhaps any other release you've had in your career thus far. And what a great place to be at, at age 55 or any age. Just it's very exciting to be in that spot. So I bet you're going to be seeing more people coming out to those live shows, and it's going to be very interesting couple of years ahead for you guys. I'm really excited for you.
Fantastic, thank you. It reminds me of something that I said to Mark Truack when we recorded The Garden, which was our second album. I just said, how am I going to top that? How am I going to,
Yeah.
you know? And then I think we came out with something that I felt was a better album and Artificial. And then I think it sort of progressed from there. And as I said, having heard some of UPF's new album, that's it's sounding sensational.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as I said, I think there was a progression for me from my songwriting and producing and playing point of view. For me, there was a step up personally to the first Southern Empire album, and then another step up again with this one. So if I can keep stepping up, that's certainly going to be my aim to. And I think the key to that is involving other people, so involving the other band members from a writing and a production and arranging point of view. And I think that's what Mark has done as well very effectively with getting other people involved. So you've got all these ideas coming at you, and I guess as a producer and arranger, it's my job to take all those ideas and craft them into something that is as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah. Beautiful, Sean. Well, we want to close with a track from the new album, and you get to pick it. Which one you want? We could go with the one of the. We could go with one of the bookends to just keep it accessible in terms of length of time. But I'll let you pick it and introduce it if you want.
Yeah. Well, look, I think let's do the album opener. It's sort of I guess for the first album the hit single was How Long. But I think for this album, the hit single at 9.5 minutes or whatever it is.
That's how we do
it. It's Goliath's Moon. So, and also we've got a video coming out for this song very shortly in the next week or two. So I reckon Goliath's Moon it is. So you're listening to Sonic Perspectives, and this is the opening track of our new album Civilisation, called Goliath's Moon, written by the one and only Cam Blockland. So enjoy.
Sweet. Thanks so much for talking to us, Sean.
Let me tell you, my friend, about a diamond I once owned. I found it on Goliath's moon. It was hidden in the center of the core. I sold it to a man with wings and a halo for a head. I breathed a sigh, said goodbye, thought I'd never see my diamond again. My diamond is lost. once more. I'm a better man than who I was before. No longer a child, unstable and wild. I'll hold the moon upon my shoulder.
Think you're ready to try?
Yes, I'm ready this time. I can
You're the
feel
same man that
it
you
in
were
my
before.
heart.
You think
history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one.